Warning, do not listen to this podcast if hearing about freedom and liberty is not legal for you in your community. And if so, you should immediately move to a hipper community.
Welcome to the Freedom Feens Podcast, a weekly web lab where Michael W. Dean and Neema Vedadi cover the punk rockinist, hip-hopinist current events, as well as timeless universal truths about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because there's no such thing as half-free. The Freedom Feens Podcast, available from freedomfeens.com. That's FREEDOMFEENS.com.
Freedom Feens is proudly syndicated by Alterati.com and the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Welcome to the Vaporsmiths Freedom Hour with Freedom Feens Michael W. Dean.
Broadcasting from my windowless bunker.
And Neema Vedadi.
Go Freedom Feens!
Fiendin'.
Rolling. It's the Fiends, yo.
Yo. What's up, Neema?
What's up, man?
Hey.
You ready to keep it 100?
Yeah. So Ian had a talk with us about just the free-formness of our live show. I guess we're going to try to rein it in a little more and not talk into the breaks and out of the breaks as much.
Yeah, I guess specifically his comments was, you know, a lot of times we'll get a caller like right before the break, so we'll be like, hey, we'll keep you on, and then we record them during the break, and usually we're still talking when we come back on live. So
yeah,
to a radio listener, it's like, okay, they didn't have a stopping point before the break, and they just pick it up in media res right after the break. It's like, what did I miss? And
what's
also,
in media res? In
the middle of it, I think is what it means. So,
yeah, it's. I mean, I would imagine if a radio listener were, and it is on like a bunch of radio stations now, including one in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
which we're going to try not to cuss. And today is going to be I'm going to edit out the cussing because Neema's going to Hawaii, so I got a day to
Hawaii. Yeah, baby.
We're recording early, so I'm gonna edit this like I used to, like go through and do it carefully for once.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be lamping, man. This is the summer of 1,000 vacations, apparently, for me.
I know. And then when you get back from this one, though, I've got a list of daily tasks for you to be fiending. I'm going to work on that list while you're gone.
Okay. That's fair enough. Although, so right after Hawaii, I'll be in town for a few days, 3 days.
Oh, come on, man. Oh, F you.
It's a short one. It's a short one. It shouldn't affect the Fiends' regular stuff. But,
what is it? Where are you going?
From Thursday till that Sunday, we're going out to West Texas. We're going to climb the top of Mount Guadalupe. I think it is the tallest mountain in Texas, which isn't saying much. It's like 8,000 or 9,000 feet or something.
That's like being the smartest guy in the Special Olympics.
Yeah. So we're going to do that. Kind of couldn't get out of it because it's a thing for my mother-in-law. It's like her birthday, and she always likes to do something adventurous, like jump out of planes or climb mountains. So we're going to go be there for the family, and I guess we already hiked down to the bottom of the biggest canyon in the world, so now we're going to hike up the tallest mountain in Texas. I guess it keeps with our theme.
So now that you've given DHS your itinerary, I want to mention that this is the 100th Fiend episode.
Yeah.
Woo! Yay.
Keeping it 100.
The name of it is The Freedom Feens, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Drones, which Kai Vick came up with. Do you know what that's a reference to?
Yeah, Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, which is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Quit Worrying and Learned to Love the War.
Yeah, which is a really great movie. I mean, Kubrick is always awesome, and it's kind of black and white and seems kind of old school, but definitely give it a watch.
It is old school.
Yeah, it is old school.
I think it was made the year I came out. I think it's like...
Oh, really?
Maybe.
Huh.
Let's
I'll
see.
be damned.
Did you like the picture that I made of you riding the drone?
Yes. I was very thankful for that.
Yeah, the guy who came up with that is going to redo it better, but I'm going to use that and then replace it in the episode when the good Photoshop guy that came up with that meme does it better. I sent him all my files.
Okay. Excellent.
1964, man. Yeah. Dr. Strangelove came out the year I was born. You know, they actually delayed the release of that like 3 months and edited one scene from it, because there's one scene where it's like, oh my God, the president's been killed. And the original release date of this movie turned out to be the day Kennedy was killed. Now, I don't know how you pull something on the release date of the date, you know, without maybe they knew ahead of time. I don't know. Maybe they got the memo from the CIA. Hey, you got to push back this release because the president's going to be dead.
Yeah, that's a bit of speculation there. I wasn't an anarchist when I first watched it, and I don't think I've watched it since, but in retrospect, there is some sort of anti-state things, although I don't know how you'd take them. Like the crazy American general, the one who sort of wants to nuke things. One of the reasons he gives is the Soviets are starting to control, or the communists are starting to control America, and one of his pieces of evidence he gives is they're trying to steal our precious bodily fluids by putting fluoride in the water.
Yeah, interesting. You know, that's not something that Alex Jones noticed.
Well, it just makes me wonder, was there some of, hey, if you think fluoride is bad, you're kooky and you want to nuke the world? I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen it since I've been an anarchist. Never really viewed it with a critical eye. I just watched it in college, probably stoned one night because I was into Kubrick.
Yeah, I put it in my DVD queue for Netflix just now. I stole some time from the Fiends and put it in.
Okay.
You know, Peter Sellers plays like 3 roles in that, and who's the guy that plays the guy on the Slim Pickens plays the guy on the riding the bomb. Doing that meme in.
Okay.
Now that role was offered to John Wayne and he turned it down, and then it was offered to the guy who played Hoss on Bonanza, and he called the script Commie or Pinko and turned it down, and Slim Pickens said, "I'll do it." And Kubrick didn't tell Slim Pickens that it was a comedy, and only showed him the script for the scenes he was in, so he played it totally straight like Cowboy. You know, Slim Pickens played Taggart on Blazing Saddles, if you remember that.
Oh man, I really don't. But
he's the one that says, "You use your tongue prettier than a $20 whore."
No, doesn't ring a bell. I need to go back and watch Blazing Saddles again. I think I've only seen it on daytime TV when there's nothing else on, various bits and pieces. But dude's name was Slim Pickens? Like, did he change it, or his parents named him that?
No, it's his stage name. He was a rodeo clown before he was in movies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you know, somebody at the rodeo said, "You really want to be a rodeo clown? Man, that doesn't pay well. The pay is Slim Pickens."
Nice.
And he took it as his name.
Okay.
Yep. You know, there's another thing about the plot that's not noticed a lot in Dr. Strangelove that I think is the general's motivation for bombing everything, other than, you know, he's a crazy warmonger like they all are. There's this really quick thing goes by, barely mentioned, that like what the plan is after, you know, when the bombs are dropping, to herd the brightest and best into fallout shelters, deep, huge, giant government fallout shelters, so people can repopulate the earth with the best and brightest and most statist. And he says, I think that a good ratio would be 1 man to every 10 women. So really, he just wants to be in a bunker with a lot of women.
The white statist version of the 70 virgins theory.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of nukes, isn't it coming up on the anniversary of Nagasaki and Hiroshima?
I don't know. I know it's coming up at the end of this year on the anniversary of the end of the 100-year. The Federal Reserve was only authorized for 100 years, so basically Congress has to reinstate it in December. Or by
really?
December. You know, Adam Kokesh, I bash him a lot, but he did this great video this week where he went to the Federal Reserve and talked to the guys guarding it. And they're Marines, and he's an ex-Marine, and he talked Marine talk with them, and like, you know what you're doing isn't constitutional. You're not defending the Constitution doing this, and you should go home and Google this. And you know, they were very Marine-like, and but respectful. You know, it's pretty good. Is one of the better things I've seen out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah, there was also I think he's...
And you can see it immediately if you're not listening to this, 3 years later on the streaming feed. If you're listening to this new, you can go to dailyancap.com and it'll be up there.
It sure will. Yeah. There was also Ben Swan, I think is his name. He's a mainstream media reporter for a Fox affiliate somewhere in the East. I'm not really sure where, but he's sort of famous in the libertarian community for doing these reality check. That's his sort of shtick. And he did them on, the Ron Paul elections and with a very pro-liberty kind of angle. And he did one of these reality checks on the Fed, which, it's all kindergarten stuff to libertarians and anarchists, but it was great to see something like that coming out of, a Fox affiliate. Now, I did something like that in Wyoming called Metal Money about, gold money versus...
Where you had Lou Rockwell on the TV.
Where I had Lou Rockwell on the ABC affiliate in Wyoming. But that's a lot smaller audience. This guy's in like a middle or upper market. I think it's like, I want to say Pittsburgh or Philly or something about that size.
Yeah. So, what about it?
Well, I just thought it was really awesome. He pimped The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is sort of a book that lots of libertarians and anarchists have read about how the Fed was formed, on this thing called Jekyll Island. And he goes on to say that, it was basically just these banking families, J.P. Morgan and the Rothschilds family. He says this, on mainstream TV, and says that they basically just colluded to keep the American people from actually having sound money and to protect the bankers rather than the people. So that's his reality check when he's talking about the Fed. Is he said the Fed's not here to help you; it's here to steal your money and protect the bankers.
Does he still have a job?
Well, I haven't checked on him since then. This was earlier this week. But
what's his name? Ben
Swan.
All right, go on.
So, I'm
intrigued and wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
You should, and people should support him. And I don't really know how the news.
That's what Homer says to Lisa when she's talking about something intriguing once.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
Nice. I'm intrigued and wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
Nice.
She doesn't have a newsletter.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say I'm a hater, but I kind of felt like it made me feel like maybe I should have stayed in the MSM and done stories like this. Although whenever I pitched stuff like this, it was never accepted. And maybe I could go to some other market. But I'm thinking maybe this guy is sort of like what happened to Stossel. Because, I had a friend once I was chatting with on Facebook, and he was like, well, don't you think you could have done a lot more good trying to teach people on the MSN, your average daily news watcher, rather than sort of preaching to the choir?
Screw that, man. We got the FEENS streaming feed, which has an average of 4 listeners at a time. Screw the mainstream media.
Well, we do. And then the other thing is, I think people like Ben Swan. I'm not sure on him, but I am sure on Stossel. Because my friend brought up Stossel as an example. And Stossel was a statist, like a complete statist, and he's still not an anarchist. But back in the day, he was pushing for consumer type laws, like to force people to wear seatbelts and various things like that. And then he sort of had an awakening once he was already famous. It wasn't like he came into this.
Yeah, that's how you do it. You can't... You basically have to be a square in the media for like 20 years, and then you can have your, let's talk about the economic ramifications of libertarianism, and then you do that for a while, and then they fire you.
Then they fire you.
He still has a job, according to Fox19.com, his website, his company website. But then again, I think you're still listed on the K2 site, or you were for like 6 months.
Yeah. Well, this was a recent report, and this wasn't something new that he comes out and says these kinds of things. Like I said, with the Ron Paul stuff, he was calling out things like, Ron Paul's the only one that opposes the war, opposes the Fed, and here's he gave sort of a brief overview of why all these statist things are bad and why it's okay to vote for Ron Paul, and that he's not just some kook that's insane and doesn't have a consistent message.
In my idea of incrementalism and education, the more people that can go from you got to vote for Romney or Obama to I'm going to vote for Ron Paul, the better.
Yeah, totally. Because once you get into Ron Paul, you generally get into who Ron Paul's teachers were, who he reads, and then you get into Mises and Rothbard, and then you sort of once you go there, it just keeps snowballing.
And Ron Paul's been dropping hints about the fact that he's an anarchist to the point where Oh yeah, we talked about that before.
Well,
Man,
I thought you meant something newer.
No. I was
Okay.
gonna say how much do you smoke anyway?
No. I mean, yeah, we've always said on this cast that we think he's a closet anarchist. I thought you had meant there was something new where he came out and said something.
No, but I think
edgy.
like a week after the election, he's gonna write an essay on his blog or something about why all his fans should quit voting.
I sure hope so.
I really do. I
Yeah.
really do. Maybe not within a week, but.
FreedomFeens.com, 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 Freedom Feens. Freedom Feens. FreedomFeens.com, 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 Freedom Feens. Freedom Feens. FreedomFeens.com, 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 Freedom Feens. Freedom Feens. Freedom Feens. Freedom Feens.
If he's a true anarchist and really wants to help the movement, I think that is his best next move. Whereas the MSM is sort of reporting that that Rand Paul, because I guess Rand Paul now has a speaking slot at the Republican convention in Tampa, and the MSM is sort of saying, well, Rand's going to inherit all of Ron Paul's libertarians. It's like,
Romney's speechwriter is going to write Rand Paul's speech at that.
yeah, and we're all going to hang our head in shame and call him Judas.
I'm not. I was never really that into Rand Paul. I could see that he was not his father, even when I was a minarchist.
Yeah, you're right, and he always had hints. I kind of had just hoped that he would, I don't know, get taught a little bit more by his dad, and his dad would show him the ropes, but I feel like he's not hanging out with his dad on Capitol Hill. He's hanging out with the establishment folks, figuring out how he can better his political career rather than how he can help people to achieve liberty.
Did you know that about 10% of our new influx in traffic is coming from China?
China? Huh.
Where it's probably illegal to listen to the Freedom Fiends or very difficult. But, yeah. I guess it's because they own most of our debt, so, they have to download 10% of our podcast or something.
There you go. Maybe fiends means something interesting in China, just like it means fairy in German.
We're the freedom fairies in Germany. We get a lot of traffic from Germany now too.
Nice. Well, that's good to hear. Although maybe in China it's a lot of expatriates or American businessmen that are doing business in China, because I could see. No?
There aren't that many, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my friend Skip Lunch is an expatriate living in China, but that's not really a country that Americans generally expatriate to, because Americans trying to expatriate are generally looking for, more freedom and less taxes, and China has less freedom, and I don't even know what their tax structure is, but it's like a softer, mellower version of Korea, where like they own everything to the point where, Korea has no income tax, but they also have no income.
Yeah.
North Korea, and China's not that bad, but it's kind of like that. I mean, it's like, $8,000 a year is a big income there.
Well, I don't have any evidence to back this up, but I was under the impression that for some business ventures, it's a lot easier to start up as far as having to deal with certain regulations and certain regulatory bodies.
In China, I know that's true in Vietnam, but I don't think that's true in China. I think in China, the people that get to start companies are the ones that grease the government palms.
Right. But maybe it's easier to grease the government, the goons there.
Oh, there's probably a form for it.
Right.
Yeah, there's probably like, a set structure for how much you have to bribe.
Yeah.
And, there's probably an office of bribes where you go to find out who you have to be talking to.
Well, maybe we should implore some of the fiends that are listening in China to give us a call and let us know why they're in China and what it's like, why they went there, and how the business environment is. Is it easier? Because it's not easy in America right now. It wouldn't be hard for it to be easier than America.
I know a guy who lived in China, and he told me that you can actually get pot pretty easily there. It's not very good. And he said on several occasions he's walked by a cop smoking a joint. It's very illegal there, but the cops don't know what it is.
Ah, okay. They need to get Mr. Mackey teaching over there so he can pass around a joint to everybody. So the
They
kids
did
can
that.
smell it.
They did that in my school. I told you.
Did
it was
they really?
It was before Dare. But
okay.
it was. They had a pellet, of like hemp, like without much THC in it, and they lit the pellet on a plate, and didn't pass it around, but just like you could smell it in the whole room. And as I recall, it didn't really smell like what pot smells like.
Okay.
It was kind of like rope.
I kind of felt like it was instinctive to me, like it's in my genetic memory or something. The first time I
smoked it.
Well, that the first time I actually smelled smoking it. We were on this camping trip. We were floating the river down on the Guadalupe River in New Braunfels. They were smoking something looked like a cigarette, and I smelled it, and I knew immediately that it's not tobacco. That's got to be weed. It smelled buttery and sweet and.
Another thing I discovered about our traffic, I said we were getting like all these different IP addresses from Overland Park, Kansas, and a guy called in and said, well, at least one of them's me. It turns out the Sprint Nextel hub for the Midwest, for that part of the country, is in that town. So you get a lot of people who are probably in neighboring states even showing up as that town. Like my IP address, when I search it, shows up as Colorado ever since the buyout of my ISP.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not there aren't 40 people in Overland Park listening to us. It's people all around.
Right. If you're in small towns, that's where the hub is.
Yeah. Yep. So we got a great comment today from Max Biscorner. He said, I love listening to you guys. You've started to open my eyes to the BS that the government has been pushing on us for centuries. I've got 4 of my friends starting to listen and also my father. I really want to thank you for what you're doing and everyone who listens. Down with the drones.
Down with the drones. Yeah. Although that kind of conflicts with our that conflicts with our episode title.
Yeah, we want to ride the drones.
Yeah. I guess the thing with drones is we're not against drones per se. I mean, we're not like Luddites that hate the new technology or anything like that. It's just the state.
How they're used.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, a lot of statists think libertarians are against education. No,
Right.
We're against state education that warps people and, beats them up and throws them in handcuffs.
Right.
We're not against education. We're not against technology. I want a drone.
Yeah, I want a drone too.
I want a drone and put a radio transmitter on it and like fly around unable to be censored, broadcasting the fiends to different states.
I want a drone to deliver me tacos.
Yes. Show me your taco.
Exactly.
That's something only true fiends would know, because you'd have to have watched the DVD extras of the Guns and Weed, the Road to Freedom movie.
Yes. And I also reference it in a new line in my album, which nobody's heard yet. So
I really like the DVD extras. How many times have you watched them?
I think just once. I haven't watched the DVD extras much. Should I give it another go and watch that?
Yeah, you should. I mean, I worked really hard on kind of making it wasn't just a collection of clips thrown together. It works as a piece. And it actually, when I was editing it, I cried because of my sentimentality about you leaving Wyoming, because I made the last scene of it you turning out the light in the room.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll watch it again. Is it?
Yep.
I don't think it's up on the YouTube though.
No,
but I guess that's sort of a reason to buy the DVD and support the fiends.
Yeah. Hey, did you know that the Olympic torch relay was invented by the Nazis?
Yes, I was reading that. Or at least the modern incarnation of it, where it travels, from Greece to wherever the Olympics is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It was invented as a propaganda thing for the Leni Riefenstahl movie Triumph of the Will, which is often considered one of the greatest advances, early advances in cinematography ever. It is stunning. It was a filmmaker was, hired or force hired by Hitler to make this documentary about the Olympics in Germany in 39 maybe?
It looks like 38.
Yeah. And it's a really amazing, it actually brought filmmaking further into the future. But, and Leni, it's a woman, Leni Riefenstahl. I forget her name, but, Riefenstahl. She later said, like, I wasn't down with the Nazis at all. I was kind of tricked into making this. I didn't really know what I was making. But in that, they had the, like, they set up, a big, like, concave mirror in Greece and started a fire on a torch with the sun, and then had various people bring it to the German Olympics.
Yeah. And this is all from Wikipedia. So this isn't like tinfoil hat, like, oh, Hitler started the Olympics.
Well, no, and I checked. He didn't start the Olympics, but I checked the references on it too.
Yeah,
it's solid, and I've seen that movie.
Okay, I never seen the movie, but apparently it was Hitler saw the link with the ancient games as a way to illustrate, I guess, the idea that Greece was an Aryan forerunner of the modern Germans being Aryans.
Yeah, and as statist nationalist things go, I don't really hate the Olympics, and I don't really hate the torch. So maybe it's Hitler's one good idea. I mean, a lot of people say he had a good idea that he made the trains run on time. But he made the trains run on time by murdering people who didn't run them on time. But he probably murdered some people for the torch too.
Well, I guess I don't hate the Olympics per se, but the Olympics is very statist, and it is fun to watch.
And very corporate.
One of the things that I sort of question is how come it's always the biggest states that have the most Olympic winners?
Well, probably because they can divert enough of their federal funding to make it happen. Or it's not necessarily the biggest states. I mean, some of the smaller tyrannical states sometimes do well too, but it's generally the bigger states. I feel
like 1 and 2 used to always be like the United States and the Soviet Union, and now it's always United States and China.
Yeah. Well, China like runs mills for their children. Like they take the ones that in kindergarten or 3 years old who show promise and take them out and make them live in a training camp.
And I think didn't the Soviet Union used to do that as well?
Yeah. You know that one of the sponsors of the Olympics was the United States Post Office? We're going bankrupt, but we're going to give a bunch of money to sponsor this thing.
Whose idea was that?
Probably Timothy Geithner.
Maybe it's been a tradition or something, like, running, equestrian, delivering the mail really fast.
Slaves. Yeah. I feel like I came up with something today. I mean, I'm sure someone else has come up with this too, but I feel like there's a new Cold War, and instead of the enemy being the Soviets or even, the Muslim extremists, I feel like the Cold War is now against us.
Well, why a Cold War and not a hot war against us? I mean,
I guess it is a hot war against us. I mean, people are being thrown in prison at gunpoint.
Yeah, they're being...
You know what was a really, really bizarre one to me was this one that's always trumped about one of Obama's violations of free speech, and it was, he had a whistleblower in the NSA arrested for basically like pointing out that one of their programs was wasteful and they could do it more efficiently with this other program. And instead of being like rewarded or even ignored, he was arrested for like leaking state secrets for telling some newspaper, hey, this is really inefficient. They're spending $80 billion when they could spend $8 million. And then it was eventually like, pled down to the equivalent charge of like, using Facebook at work or something. But literally, for like stealing computer time from your employer or something. But it's interesting, and that's like, that is effed up. But it's also like the thing that he was trying to do was say, this plan that you have for spying on all of the email and phone calls of Americans is spending too much money. There's a much easier way I know of to spy on all the phone calls and emails of Americans.
Yeah. If that isn't mafia-esque, I don't know what is. Telling the Don that he could run his racket more efficiently. The Don's like, you think you can tell me what to do? Frickin' Obama. Transparency my ass. The dude's a frickin' criminal.
I know.
Frickin' criminal. I cussed.
Yep. I'm gonna edit this one. Maybe. I don't freaking know.
Well, let's take a little break here.
Hi, I'm Neema Vedadi from the Freedom Feens podcast, and I'm excited about Vaporsmith's electronic cigarettes. I dig the taste, and I dig the freedom to vape anywhere the nanny staters would wet their pants if I smoked.
Vaporsmiths.com is run by a liberty-loving entrepreneur, not some subsidized tax eater conglomerate.
I'm Michael Dean of the Freedom Feens, and I love Vaporsmiths. I smoked 3 packs of tobacco cigarettes a day for decades. but now I'm only using Vaporsmiths. I love the flavors, I don't smell like smoke, and I save money, so I have more to spend on ammo and treats for my kitties.
Available in 4 strengths and 10 delicious flavors. Reds, classics, Turkish, menthol, strawberry, cherry, vanilla, coffee, minty mint, and cloves. Go to vaporsmiths.com. Use coupon code FREEDOMFEEN to get 25% off your order. This is a limited time offer. Vaporsmiths at vaporsmiths.com.
This is the Central Scrutinizer. We're working very hard to spend your tax money to keep you from hearing things like freedomfiends.com. That's why we're very upset about freedomfiends.cz. freedomfiends.cz is a Liberty Media archive of Freedom Fiends material hosted in the Czech Republic. freedomfiends.cz is outside the jurisdiction of the Watchers, who employ me, the Central Scrutinizer, to keep you from hearing things that might make you think. My fellow Scrutinizers and I do not want you to visit freedomfiends.cz. Do not visit freedomfiends.cz.
What does freedom mean? Tune in to LRN.FM to find out. LRN.FM is the Liberty Radio Network, a collection of live talk radio and podcasts, all coming from a principled pro-liberty perspective. LRN.FM show hosts aren't left, right, or conspiracy kooks. You can tune in 24/7 to LRN.FM via your phone, computer, satellite, and more. Listen free anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
You can subscribe to Freedom Fiends via the RSS link on the top right of any page. It's orange. Or you can subscribe via email at the subscribe by email link at the top of the right sidebar on any page. It's a little bit below the search field. You'll need to respond to a one-time confirmation email, but after that, you will only receive an email each time a new episode posts. The Freedom Fiends respect your privacy. We will not spam you and will not sell, rent, or share your email address. And you are free to unsubscribe at any time.
All right, Michael, you ready?
No.
Oh, okay.
I will be. I'm changing my socks and underwear. I worked up a sweat in the first segment.
Ah, okay. You get that excited about the Freedom Fiends, huh?
No, I was working in the garden before we started this, so I had a head start on the sweaty crotch and socks. But
the Fiends don't make your crotch moist?
The Fiends, yeah, they do. Listen, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Worms.
Worms.
So let's see. What did we cover? Olympic Flame is fascist,
okay.
Nazi.
Michael's crotch being moist. All right, that's check. What's next?
The Obama administration wants to prosecute people for telling them how to better spy on Americans. Oh, did you see that really square article complaining about the Free State Project folks?
No, I've seen them before. Like I want to say 2 years back. I think the local.
I think
paper.
it's the same one. Oh, it's the not the union leader. It was WMUR.com.
Oh, yep,
it was local TV. And this one line in it really made me laugh. It was, and the arrest, they're talking about like people getting, doing activism there where they can end up getting arrested, like smoking a joint in the city park or not taking their hat off in court. And he says, one of the comments was, and the arrest, or in the article, it said, and the arrest means city services like police and court time are being used up. And I'm like, if you don't want to pay to arrest them, don't arrest them. They make it sound like it's a law of physics that you have to arrest people for violating nanny laws.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember reading that and thinking pretty much the same thing. Just get rid of the police, and then you won't have to have your money stolen to arrest people for smoking pot or holding signs at a frickin' political rally, like we saw in the victimless crime spree.
If you tell the average citizen... I was thinking before, like, if you tell the average citizen that, like, the Federal Reserve steals all their money, they're like, no, they don't. You're insane. That's the government helping us. And it's like, if you tell the average, I mean, it's kind of like telling someone, "Hey, your hair is on fire," and they're like, "No, it's not." And I feel the same way about like people, these people, you know, the average citizen and the average mainstream media person are like, these people, these activists are ruining our town because we're having to pay to arrest them. And if you say to them, "Well, don't arrest them," they're like, but
who would build the roads?
You know, like if you just, you know, it's as if you just told them that, you know, things float up when you drop them.
Well, because they're so thoroughly indoctrinated. I mean, they've been told that their whole life. And if they accept the basic truth, they have to go through and rethink everything they all already think. I think people are just, not all people, but there are some people that are so ingrained that it becomes too much work for them to disindoctrinate.
Well, and Obama is right now trying to nationally extend the length of the school year.
Yeah, and I heard that's been batted around. Also, longer school days, I think, is another proposal.
Like, people aren't getting enough indoctrination. And really, it's not about education.
No,
I mean, really,
not
you
at
know,
all.
I mean, homeschooling has proved that, you know, kids can learn at their own rate and learn in 4 or 5 years what school teaches in 13.
Yeah. Well, think about the efficiency. Okay, if you are going to believe in a statist system, whatever. Just think about the efficiency. Think about how much time is wasted getting the kids to school on a school bus, having them change classes, go through their lockers, eat lunch, do PE. I mean, do we really need to be forcing kids to climb up ropes? I mean
that's Kennedy's fault.
Why can't
Kennedy started that?
The presidential fitness test and whatnot?
Yeah.
It's like, let the kids spend more time at home so they can run around and play with their friends. If you really want them to be fit,
and you know, school. A lot of statists say, well, they're more protected from danger at the school because they're watched. And I'm like, I can't name how many cases I've heard of where, like,
school shootings.
Well, aside from that, but, like, you know, things that are far more common.
Yeah.
A kid gets bullied, you know, some kid's pushing him around and hitting him. No one protects a kid from that. And if the kid punches him back in self-defense, you know, they bring both kids in and give them psychological evaluations to try to see if they should be branded as, you know, dangerous the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Well,
and given drugs.
Exactly. Where they drug them. Well, it's like James Davis, in my interview with him, he sort of talked about this, and Stefan Molyneux brings this up as well. The whole system is based on violence, right? And I think the kids pick up on that. They pick up on the fact that they're forced to go there. You know, most kids don't want to be taken away from their parents and thrown in a place that they have no idea what it is all day long. And you know, the principals there are very authoritarian. A lot of times the teachers are as well. And the attitude can be, you know, do what I say or else. There will be consequences. There will be punishment. And so I think kids internalize that and they realize that that's a way for them to act. And so I think that's why you have things like bullying and violence. I think most of us remember violence at our schools. I mean, I was thrown in a dumpster at one point in middle school. I remember
I was put in a hospital. I've talked about that before.
You have. And I was in fights too. I have not been in a fight in my life since I've been out of the public school system. But when I was in middle school, that was a thing. You just had to fight. If somebody said something wrong, it has to be a fight. If you don't fight, you're a pussy.
I have been in one really serious fight since I was out of school. But alcohol was involved, and egos, and me getting laid and the other guy not, and he hated it.
Okay.
Seriously, like, that's what he told me it was about. And it was really funny. It was like, it was when I was about 25, and it was after my band Bomb played, and this guy was at my house, and I barely knew him, and he was jealous because I was getting laid and playing in a hot rock band. Like, later, he told me that's what the fight was about. And, you know, words were exchanged. He shoved me. I shoved him back in my bedroom. And we fought for, like, 35 minutes.
Wow.
And
that's a long fight.
At one point, and we both had really long hair. And I had this, like, chunk of barbed wire that I'd taken off the Berlin Wall while I was there. And our hair got mixed up in that. And we were, like, held together by this barbed wire. And my girlfriend, like, called a timeout and untangled our hair from that. And then we just went right back, like, ding, 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 ding. And in the end, I had this road sign that I'd stolen somewhere, and like a big long, you know, 4x4 kind of plank with roadside name on it, road sign, street name on it, and I whacked him as hard as I could in the head with it, and it, like, knocked him out. And he got up after a couple minutes and staggered out while I was screaming at him. And it was really funny. During all this, the police came, and I had this really weird hippie roommate who was into, like, you know, he was like black magic kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And the police came, and they were like, hello, sir. You know, he answered the door while we were fighting. And they're like, we heard there was a disturbance here. Could we come in, please? And he started, like, pointing his fingers at them like magician, like I cast thee away, and, like, speaking in Latin to them. And they left.
They left. It
like,
worked. Those are the magic words. What did he say?
I guess the magic words are just being so fucking weird. Sometimes the magic words are being so fucking weird that the cops just go, I don't want to deal with this.
I can't think of how I'm going to write this report. Let's just go get donuts.
Yeah. Yes. And then Merlin put a spell on us. Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing was, like, the next day I felt really bad about it, and I went to his work. I didn't know where he lived or his phone number. I knew where he worked. I went to his work to, like, apologize to him and make amends, and for hitting, you know, not for the whole fight, but for conking him out, which was unnecessary, because we were both pretty much done by then. And I showed up at his work, and he was terrified. He thought I was coming to his work to kill him.
Oh. Yeah. I feel like I couldn't get in a fight nowadays. I feel like it would be prevented from happening because of the gun on my hip. I mean, maybe if I was in, you know, a hospital or someplace that I'm not allowed to carry a gun, that I happen to comply with the rules and have to be there, I could see myself getting into a fight. But I think in general, since I'm always carrying, you know, if somebody wanted to fight me, I'd just be like, look, I don't want to fight. I have the ability to end any kind of violence you would initiate against me. So just walk away, dude. You know, I don't feel like there's a need to fight. And I feel like the gun.
Well, I mean, someone
that.
could always sucker punch you, or, you know, sneak up behind you and hit you with a rock or something. But I have pretty good situational awareness too, and I'm usually with DJs, so it's pretty hard, you know, for one person to attack two people like that while they're both armed.
That's true. That's true.
Is your wife carrying yet?
No, that's still on the to-do list.
Okay.
But yeah, I would definitely like that to happen. You know, I feel like. You and DJ sort of have it made. Yeah, because if one of you is getting harassed...
You have each other's back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes up, points a gun at you, asks for your wallet, DJ just sort of steps to the side, you know, while the guy's focused on you.
Yeah, I think that'd be an important part of it, would be getting distance between you and getting different angles between you. Yeah.
Like that PDF you sent me of, I think it was a former police officer who sort of teaches self-defense classes. I don't know if that's public or you want to post that in the show notes.
It is. I think I did post it. It's he actually releases it Creative Commons, which is pretty surprising for a former cop who doesn't seem like a libertarian.
Yeah.
But
well, maybe he's just that passionate about, you know, wanting innocent people to defend themselves from aggressors. And there's lots of really good stuff in there, like making sure you keep people, you know, don't let people get behind you, keep a safe distance, putting up the fence, you know, having one hand up as sort of a barrier.
Psychological.
And cussing, which was, I thought, a really important part of it is, you know, you can use loud language and things like the F word and the S word, not to sort of escalate it, but to let them know that you're not effing around, you know. Yeah,
and another thing he talked about a lot, which is not so intuitive, is when a stranger approaches you and looks like they're going to get too close to you and they're doing something wonky, and he had lists of, like, things people tend to do before they attack someone, like shifting from one foot to the other,
grooming,
and, like touching, like pretending they're smoothing their hair back, you know, just kind of trying to look casual, or touching their face,
looking around,
you know,
like checking your right and your left, making sure there's nobody else around, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he said one thing to do is not just hold up one hand as a barrier, like stop, you know, but also to tell the person what you want, which is, hey, hold it right there, please. Don't walk any closer, you know, which isn't, I'm gonna shoot you. It's basically drawing a line in the sand. Whereas if you just start going like, what do you want? Get away, you know, what do you want? Who are you? That doesn't say get away from me. But if you say stop right where you are, don't come any closer, which is a valid thing for anybody to say when a stranger comes up to them. I mean,
it sort of has the same
people,
kernel as good fences make good neighbors. It's having a boundary there, and even though it's an imaginary boundary, it's very real in the sense that if you cross this, if you get any closer, I'll consider that as invading my space, as an aggression.
Yeah. So do you like this this picture of you riding the drone home, Val?
I do. Yeah. If I could ride a drone, I would do it.
Yeah. I'm going to have somebody do it better. Christopher, what's our fiend friend's name? Christopher.
We get so many of them nowadays.
I know. We have so many fiends. So many males, too. Where the female fiends at?
There's a few. We had a female caller a couple months ago.
Yeah, your mom.
No, there was the other mom.
No, it was Justin's wife.
Okay.
Yeah, Mrs. Justin.
Yeah. And she was an awesome caller.
She was great.
Well, on our stats, I mean, isn't our demographic by far male? And
well, Facebook I can tell better, but not everybody who listens to us writes in. Maybe they're playing us at the Chinese girls' school in China. I think they're just using us for like training of what to look for in subversives in China.
Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense too because we are dudes and we talk about dude stuff and we are kind of crass sometimes. So
there's crass ladies out there. I love them. I love them. I'm married to one.
Yeah.
She's not crass in general, but she has a similar sense of humor to you and I.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Olympics, one other thing I meant to say but didn't, and maybe this is old news by now, but I don't know if we've talked about it. Did you know that the quote-unquote gold medals at the Olympics are like 1.34% gold?
No, but did you know that you're taxed when you win one in America?
I did know that.
Like $6,000?
Yep, because they tax your winnings. I guess if you win gold, you get like $25,000 or something. And so the government just goes and takes that away from you. It was funny because there was some right-winger, I forget, some right-wing media personality that was sort of going off on this, or maybe it was even a politician, was saying, this just goes to show how bad it is that we can tax success. It's not an incentive, it's a disincentive to succeed. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but why don't you broaden it out? I mean, aren't all taxes just that? I mean, any tax is a disincentive to do whatever's taxed. So if you make money, I mean, and it's taxed, that's a disincentive to make money. Any money. Doesn't have to be a gold medal. Doesn't have to be some great success.
Yeah. Nobel Prizes used to be made of 23 karat gold, which is like 90-some% gold. And they're heavy. I mean, it'd be thousands of dollars worth of gold, many thousands of dollars. They don't make them that gold anymore.
No, it's too damn expensive.
Are you one of the 12% of Americans who still approves of our government? Then we need your help to force the other 88% into compliance. When you're not busy spying on your neighbors or squinting at everyone, tell anyone who will listen why more government is a good thing. You'll get a warm and fuzzy feeling demanding more taxes and arguing in favor of gun control while militarizing our police. 'Cause folks just aren't smart enough to handle real freedom.
That is so square. Check out the additional Freedom Fiends show, Freedom Fiends Live, every Sunday on the LRN.FM streaming feed or satellite radio.
Broadcasting live and worldwide from a windowless bunker inside a mountain near an undisclosed location in the rural Wild West of the occupied states of America.
Freedom Fiends Live expands on the Fiends' weekly Wednesday podcasts, but now we're kicking the hornet's nest live. Talk back to the backtalkers every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. East Coast time. From the makers of Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. Freedom Fiends Live. Call in soon before we get droned. When the Nazis were coming through and arresting Jewish scientists in Germany, there was one scientist that had 2 Nobel Prizes, and one of his lab assistants dissolved them in... There's only one thing that will dissolve gold. It's a mixture of 2 acids. I think it's called like spiritus vititis or something. It's like sulfuric and nitric acid or something like that. He dissolved them in gold in that and just had them in a big flask in the lab. And the Nazis came in and saw it and just left.
Nice.
And then after the Nazi occupation was done, he reconstituted them to gold and had the Nobel people recast them to gold.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
He should get a Nobel Prize for that.
for using science against the state.
Yeah. He deserves a Peace Prize more than Obama does for just that action.
Oh, yeah. Obama deserves a war prize.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, when Obama won that prize, everyone was complaining, like, well, he hasn't done anything yet, but he should have it rescinded now.
Yeah, I wish. I don't know. Is there a process for that? Like, can you petition the Nobel people to take this guy's prize away?
Let's look into that. Let's have it done.
Let's have it done. It will be so. Make it so.
Taken away. Nobel Prize taken away. Can a Nobel Prize be taken away from you? Wiki Answers says, doesn't have an answer.
Oh.
It's just a question.
Okay. Huh. Well, I guess maybe it should stay. Maybe it should stay to show the irony and how ridiculous it is that Obama got a Peace Prize. Maybe it's a good glaring inconsistency for people to grasp onto and sort of disassociate themselves from the state. If it shows you that just because people call themselves, the Nobel Committee, just because people call themselves a committee and get together in a group and make an edict or a statement, doesn't mean it's true. So maybe it's a good thing that he still has the Peace Prize. Worms. Exactly. My brother. My brethren.
My brethren. My wormrin.
That sounds a little too Dungeons and Dragons, though.
So, yeah, it does. I'm at 27th level wormrin. So, Wyoming's election system got a good rating from the National Elections Rating Board.
Okay, good for them. Although, as you broke the story, it wasn't all that good this time around in the Republican convention, was it?
No, and I'm really sad about how much that story didn't really break. I mean, not like I wanted attention for it, but I really felt like that was going to hit the front page of the Huffington Post or something, but nope.
Yeah, well, I mean, there had already been so many examples of sort of fraud at that point, and there were even after that, and I kind of feel like, yeah, Rachel Maddow and sort of the HuffPo crowd did kind of make a deal out of it just to make fun of Republicans and how awkward the process was and how much infighting there was. So maybe it was just bad timing on the part of the Wyoming caucus, I guess it was. The other thing, I guess, though, is maybe the reason that didn't play into any kind of verifiable elections organization was because isn't the caucus that's separate from like the election that they would judge, because that's not a statewide election. You're not actually electing anybody to office. It's a party thing.
Yeah. Sure.
But
sure.
Either way, the other thing about these election organizations is none of them, of course, because they're for elections. I feel like there needs to be a group that comes around and says, hey, all elections are bad. There's no point to them. Stop doing them. If your social structure is based on the state and elections, then here is why it won't work. Because you can't let 51% of the people tyrannize the other 49%. And just because a majority of people think it's right doesn't mean it is right.
Did you see this thing called the United World Federalists?
Yes, I did see that.
Which is like a lobbying group to get a one world government.
Yeah. Well, it's not new at all. Like, it's been around forever.
I know.
In the wiki page, it even says, Albert Einstein was one of the members at some point in his life.
And that goes back to my thing of, like, the scientists always think the scientists are going to solve the ills of the world and they have to be backed by the government guns to do it. Yeah,
I think there's some of that going on. One of the things that caught me is, it's almost like they saw the problem with the modern nation states. It was post-war, so they were very, the whole world was sort of in a shell shock that such a horrible thing could happen. And
as what? Nazism?
Nazism, the
fascism,
bombs, the nukes, the total war, the fact that towns.
Total war, that's an interesting term that we haven't covered. Do you want to define that?
Well, it's the idea that everything's fair game. So it's not just soldiers on the battlefield, but it's pregnant mothers.
A country.
It's just basically scorched earth, eviscerating anything.
And interestingly, because I think the United States military has really tended away, tried to soft sell themselves and be like, we're not in total war, and we're into very pinpoint war,
surgical
and that's
strike,
why drones are good. Yeah, but there are more. There's a lot of collateral murder or damage going on now. Like the wedding party, where they'll blow up a whole wedding party to kill one person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when it is surgical, a lot of times the people they strike aren't really combatants. Like Anwar al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son that went to Yemen to look for his dad and help get his dad to come home was bombed at a backyard barbecue.
One of the most mind-blowing things to me that Obama got a pass on that. And it's funny too, because Obama said about the guy George Zimmerman shot, like, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Martin. And I was thinking, like, if you had a son, he'd look a lot like Awlaki.
Yeah.
That kid really looks like Obama more than Trayvon Martin did.
There you go. Yeah, there's no way Obama's a secret Muslim. Silly.
No, he kills too many Muslims.
But the thing with these United World Federalists is I feel like they did see a problem with total war, and they sort of knew that the blame sort of lied on the nation state. Okay, fair enough.
Lane.
Well, the blame was with the nation, the modern concept of a nation state. Yes, that's very true. But I felt like their solution was, instead of having a nation state, we should build a world state. They got the word wrong that should be changed. The state is the part of that equation that is the problem. We don't need a world state to get rid of nation states. We just need to cross out the state part, because the problem is the state. It doesn't matter if you have a city-state, a state built around the church, like you had in medieval times, as long as there's a mindset that a certain small group of people have the moral right to kill others and force them to do the bidding or the will of the leaders. That's what you have. That's a state, and that is the essence of the problem.
And as we've said, and Ben Quaker has said, it all comes down to the state isn't the government. The government is the buildings and badges and the guns and the paychecks. The state is the horizontal enforcement that allows the government to continue. Without the state, the government wouldn't exist. Right. And, really, if you want to look at democracy, I think that if a majority of people no longer believed in the state would fail. They would crack down really hard on a bunch of people for a while. But that's the bloodless coup that's possible, is just educate as many people as possible to not buy into the state.
Reducing the demand for the state, basically. The other thing about it being a world state is, where was I going with that?
I gotta, while you find your thoughts, I have a thought too about educating people against statism, and people really, they cling to it. Not even just minarchists who cling to the, like, we must vote or we'll get eaten alive. Or, we need some government, the idea that government is a horrible thing, so government should only do really important things.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
And I go back to AA a lot. I see a lot of parallels between AA and Liberty. It's a principled program with, basic outlines of how to live your life and not a lot of rules. And there's a thing in AA, it's not in the AA book, but it's said in a lot of meetings, and it's this parable called Drop the Rock. Have I talked about Drop the Rock before?
Not that I can recall.
Well, it's basically the idea that you're out with your friends in the woods, and your friend jumps in the lake, and he's holding on to this giant rock in the lake, and he's drowning, and he's like, help me, and you're like, drop the rock, and he says, but it's my rock. And that's an analogy in AA for resentments. The rock is your resentments, and part of staying sober and sane in AA is getting rid of your resentments. And which is interesting because the Freedom Fiends are all about building resentments against the state, but I think that's a healthy resentment. Otherwise we'd be blind and stupid if we're ignoring these things. So I really think that a lot of statism is of the drop the rock variety. Like, people are clinging to this thing that's drowning them, and they can't drop it because they're like, it's mine, through patriotism or whatever. And I think Obama is really getting away from patriotism and more to nationalism. I think patriotism really disgusts him, but nationalism really makes him wet in his panties.
Well, go ahead and define the terms there a little bit, because I feel like Well,
You go
in
ahead.
essence, to me, nationalism is a form of patriotism, right? And I feel like Obama does think that the American state is superior to others and should have its role at the top of the hierarchy in the world stage.
I don't
You
think so. I really don't think so. I mean, the Republicans complained a lot about him, like, apologizing on bended knee to world leaders, and I didn't care one way or the other, but that's indicative of, I really think he wants to be the head of the world government. I don't think he believes in American exceptionalism or, which I don't know if I believe in, I don't believe in it either, because I've actually traveled.
Okay.
Unlike most people who
I think
wave
you
the
may be
flag.
right, but then he
I
would-
think he's really disgusted by the things that are generally associated with patriotism, like flag waving and loving the founding fathers and loving the Constitution.
Okay.
And I think he's really all about, like, you don't venerate the founding fathers in his world. You venerate FEMA, as your federal family.
Okay. No,
He wants you to worship the bureaucracy and the badge and the authority and the unquestionableness of it.
He's a
Whereas,
pure statist.
I think patriots, the classical idea of patriotism involves questioning authority. I mean, I told you about those training films that they showed in the 40s that, like, taught you to not put up with public school teachers who wouldn't let you question things. And this was produced by patriots.
Okay. I see where you're coming at from there, but I still wouldn't call Obama a nationalist then. If your argument is that he wants to be the head of the world government, and it's not the American.
Yeah, but he wants to use nationalism to get there.
Okay. I can kind of see that. I see where you're coming from. And for those who say, who may be on this idea that, we need a world government because then you wouldn't have wars. I think you would have a bigger war, and the war would be from the government towards the people, just as it is now in America. But
well, like I said, the new Cold War were the enemy.
Exactly. And so do you want the aggressor, the state, to be even bigger than it is now? Because that's what you would have with the world government. And you would have that power concentrated into even more a minute set of hands than it is now. And I think...
And they'd largely be Belgian. I heard on Freedom's Phoenix today, I heard him talking about some American soldier that was discharged. I don't know if it was honorably or less than honorably, but he was patriotic. He joined to defend the Constitution, and he got trained and he got shipped over, and they put a blue helmet on him and had him working for a UN guard troop. And, his commander was French, and he's like, this isn't what I signed up for. I'm not defending the Constitution.
Right.
And, that's kind of arguing minutia in a way, but it's kind of not in a way. I mean, really, if there's anything about American exceptionalism, it's the fact that the American Revolution was probably the only successful revolution of its time that, put in place an ideal of more freedom that lasted a decade or so. So, when I was still clinging to the rock of minarchy I used to say, well, I'm only patriotic for America from 1775 until the beginning of the Whiskey Rebellion, which I don't even say that anymore. But I have more respect for... I have respect for that soldier, I guess I could say, in some weird way.
Okay.
Basically, he was not happy that he'd signed up for one thing and there was a bait and switch.
So the idea is you sort of feel like his heart's in the right place, like he wants to be defending freedom. And when he realized he wasn't, it was appropriate for him to call that out. That, hey, I'm not defending freedom here, guys.
Yeah. And I think that kind of people tends to end up being an anarchist.
I hope so.
Via Ron Paul, probably.
Yeah. Well, whatever it takes, right?
Check out the Anarchy Gumbo podcast. Michael W. Dean of the Freedom Fiends cooks up a very special blend of liberty, guns, sex, rock and roll, drugs, and thriving in spite of the state in an increasingly worrying world. All with a rotating cast of nifty guests who are also up in the middle of the night. The Anarchy Gumbo podcast. A tasty stew of freedom and fun. Subscribe at kittyfeet.com. That's KITTYFEET.com.
Tired of the false economy?
Want to carry real money in a form that people will dig getting? Don't Tread on Meme now has Freedom Fiends and Guns and Weed silver dime cards. Collect all 4. Trade them with your friends. Freedom Fiends silver dime cards are also great for starting conversations with statists about liberty. Go to freedomfiends.com today and click the link at the top that says Silver Dime Cards. That's freedomfiends.com.
We're not saying the Freedom Fiends are the one true path to anarchist liberation, but it's a good one. If you want to put your voluntarist money where your mouth is, consider making a donation to the Freedom Fiends. Go to freedomfiends.com and click on the spinning coin on any post. Then make a one-time gift via PayPal or set up a monthly contribution of as little as $3. Giving to the Freedom Fiends helps advance education of horizontal liberation throughout the world. The Freedom Fiends. We work hard, so send us some money.
I know what you're getting at, but I would call the American Revolution a military success, not necessarily a social revolution kind of success. And if it was, then it was very limited. And you know this, and I know you know this about the Whiskey Rebellion and the fact that not a whole lot really changed. In fact, taxes ended up being more. And also, if it was a successful social revolution, I feel like, you know, we would have had freedom for a lot longer than just during the Articles of Confederation. But I think it is interesting in the fact that it was a military success, and that is important, that there was, a smaller group of people that wanted freedom from the state, and they were able to achieve a defeat over the overbearing, gigantic empire state.
You know, a lot of people who own guns talk about, like, well, I have them to resist tyranny, and we've debunked that. And I think a lot of people imagine it's going to be something like the American Revolution, which cannot happen at this point. At best it'd be 1,000 ruby ridges. The only application I've seen of it, and this is in fiction, of what I really think the Second Amendment was about, is the book Molon Labe. And I'm not advocating any violence, but it's an interesting piece of fiction because it's basically like, there's one guy going around killing tyrants, and often years after they retire. And he's not just using guns, he's mostly using poisons and garrotes and all sorts of weird things, and he's never caught. And then Wyoming trains a state full of riflemen, but the rifles aren't really what gets them left alone in the end. It's basically, I think it's kind of a takeoff on the joke of if the Second Amendment really means what it means, then everyone should be able to have a nuke. It's literally the libertarian governor has, insiders from the National Guard steal 3 nukes from the Air Force base and put them in D.C., hide them in D.C. And then it's okay, Wyoming is left alone. Wyoming gets the bomb, basically.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The thing about it, though, is I feel like just the fact that a populace is allowed to have guns, I think that, and maybe it's a chicken and the egg kind of thing, but I feel like in societies where the populace is completely disarmed, it does make it easier for tyrants to go around and commit genocide or massacre people.
Well,
now,
an interesting thing with that is the fact that often in when a gunman goes off on a crowd here, even when there's not someone with a gun, they're often tackled by citizens, and that doesn't happen in other countries as much because other citizens in other countries that don't have guns curl up in a ball. And the fact that people have guns here, even if the guy doing the tackling doesn't have a gun, it's kind of America's this incubator where people can have guns, and it kind of teaches you that it's okay to fight back.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of what keeps the state at bay more than it's encroached already.
There you go. Yeah. The concept of self-defense is more apparent in societies where you can have, one of the most effective tools for defending yourself and equalizing an attack. Of course, with things like drones, the game sort of changes. I feel like one of the reasons that you have genocides where you disarm the populace, like Hitler did with the Jews, etc., the idea is people are more of a low-hanging fruit. It's a lot easier to round people up. You just have to send a few goons. You have a smaller commitment of resources to tyrannize the people. With things like drones, the state is sort of changing the game, and still, I think they want us to be more easier to tyrannize.
Yeah. I mean, in the book, in Solzhenitsyn's book, the Gulag Archipelago, he wrote that even after the guns were taken away from the Jews, they could have stopped the Nazis if, 1 in 3 people had hit the Nazi soldiers over the head with a chair when they came through the door.
Yeah. Because I don't have any numbers on this, but I would assume that there were more Jews in these ghettos than there were Nazi soldiers.
Well,
so
yeah.
I mean, that I say I don't have any data because I don't, but it seems fairly obvious that the Nazi soldiers would be outnumbered.
I've seen some real blowback against. There was an article recently by. It was in the site The Dollar Vigilante. Do you know that site?
Yeah.
It's basically a liberty site for people who are wanting to or have expatriated to other countries for freedom.
Right.
And it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of people that call themselves patriots and look and act like patriots who are patriots who have left America. I mean, Jesse Ventura comes to mind.
Is he now living full-time in Mexico?
He lives most of the time in Mexico. Yeah.
Okay.
And there was an article in the Dollar Vigilante basically saying, your guns aren't going to protect you against the government. And it was written by or quoted someone who was former or current military, who was a liberty person, basically saying what they did in New Orleans during Katrina, where they rounded up guns door to door from people and threw old ladies to the floor and put their boot on their head and took their revolvers, was literally a test run for national disarmament. That was the purpose for that, this article says. And I've heard that before. And this guy said, you're not going to be able to keep your guns. They will literally take them from your cold, dead hands. You may have a battle rifle. You may have body armor. They're going to pull up, a military Humvee battalion of 2 or 3, armored vehicles in front of your house. It's going to make a SWAT team look like a bunch of kindergartners.
Yeah.
And they're going to send 40 trained soldiers into your house. And you're either going to die or you're going to give your guns up.
Yeah.
And that guy took a lot of flack, from some people I know who are liberty rifleman types, saying how dare you, say this kind of stuff. At least give us a chance, at least let us believe we can do this, or you're damning us from the start. And I'm kind of I'm really thinking when's the line in the sand, and hasn't it been crossed years ago? And all these people say, well, when they cross the line in the sand, we're going to use our rifles. And it's and I'm not trying to goad anyone to action. But I am kind of saying people have been pussies. And I know people want to live another day, fight another day, care for their families, etc. But it's the thing the American Revolution was fought for, and a lot of these people often, deify those people from the American Revolution. The things that was fought over were 0.01% of what we're experiencing now. The taxes that was fought over were much lower. And, taxation without representation. Do we have representation? I don't really think so.
No.
And, they tried to take their guns away. Well, all that's happening, and it has been happening for decades. And in the past few years, Bush second term and Obama first term have really ramped that up. To where it's is it time? I'm not advocating for anything, but I'm saying everyone's all talk. I've not heard of a single Second Amendment use of guns ever in the past, in my lifetime, modern. It's every time there's a shooting, it's innocent people. The one time it was a politician, it was some deluded guy who didn't have any purpose for doing it other than he had a crush on her. It just, I guess I'm surprised is what I'm saying.
That people would balk at the fact that you can't really stand up and point your foul at the SWAT team and win
I'm
the
surprised.
battle?
No, I think that's true. I'm surprised people haven't done it. I'm surprised people haven't gone after politicians more. The last time a politician was killed by a gun, it was probably the CIA doing it. In America, Kennedy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you kill a politician, another politician's going to come take the place. It's not individuals necessarily. It's the horizontal idea of the state that keeps it. It's not the chain of command, right? It's the chain of obedience.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree 100%, and I agree that violence isn't the answer. And it's like, I think, I don't even know if it's a moral thing that I'm saying violence isn't the answer. I just don't think it'll work, is what I'm saying.
Right. Right. It's like you're just a middle schooler trying to play against the LA Lakers in a basketball.
Yeah. And it's like, when you talk about like, is preemptive self-defense moral? Well, the government certainly thinks it does. It is, but the thing with the Nazis is like, when they say like, when should they have fought back? And it's like, I've heard one saying is at some point before the doors on the cattle cars shut, but it's like you don't know when that point is. And then again, like, the American Japanese that were interned, they were in a scenario that looked like it was going to be like the Nazi death camps, but then they were let out a few years later. So it's like it was good to not fight for them for survival. So I mean, I really don't think there's any point to fight the state. It will crush you like a bug, literally, with a drone, and it'll look like a bug splat. I think guns are for fighting off criminals who break into your house or try to take your wallet on the street with a knife.
Yeah. Or hunting for your food when you go out to live in the woods.
Or having fun and waving at the camera while rapping.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I guess... I'm 100% on board with that you can't fight the state on its battleground because you're not going to win. I mean, we don't have tanks. We don't have nukes. If we did, if there was some kind of volunteer libertarian army that rivaled the American government's army, then maybe. But
there's a lot of libertarian fiction that has that, and it's quite colorful. I can recommend some books.
Yeah,
I already have.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, is that you got to look at how the government amassed such a massive amount. The biggest military presence ever in the history of the world. More powerful than Alexander the Great or Attila the Hun could have even fantasized about is the American military. How did they get that, right?
Or Sun Tzu.
And
one of the things Sun Tzu said was that no nation... Scott Horton has this as a bumper sticker. Sun Tzu said that the guy who wrote The Art of War said no nation has ever prospered from a prolonged war.
No.
And we're into like eternal war. I really think we are. And they're doing things where like they're invoking things of like, freedom of speech is illegal during wartime. And it's like we're always going to be in wartime now, I think.
Oh, completely. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like they took 1984, the playbook for the party there, and that's sort of their playbook now. You have to have eternal war because it justifies you cracking down on dissent, and it also justifies you stealing large amounts of money to destroy all the material wealth that could have made people happier. But that's the key, right? The key is keeping them from getting that material wealth. If they don't have the stolen money to contract for the bullets and the tanks, then they won't have them. And, if we're there already, if we can get enough people to stop paying taxes, maybe it's a moot point at that point, because maybe at that point people won't be joining the army, people won't be going to Congress, things like that. But that is the way you win, is you stop people from wanting to give their money to a military-industrial complex. You stop people from wanting there to be a giant American military and a giant American empire. That's the way you beat the state. And like Ben says, it's not just the American state. That's the way you beat the world state, too, is you keep people from buying into the fantasy that is the state.
You're listening to the Freedom Feens podcast, available from freedomfeens.com. That's FREEDOMFEENS.com.
I get kind of disillusioned sometimes. I mean, I worry about it. I look at the Freedom Feens, we've worked really hard on building up this audience, and we have about, 3,000 or 4,000 listeners now, which is a lot, but it's really nothing. It's like, if you started a Facebook group called, think of the children, like advocate for more money to be spent on public education, you'd end up with 100,000 likes on it.
Yeah.
Then again, that's like clicking like doesn't take as much work or as time as listening to quality media.
But we're just one flavor. We're the crocodile and naughty nursey version of Freedom. I mean,
I love that you love that.
Stefan Molyneux has, 1 million views, a million podcast downloads or something like that. Now, maybe that's not 1 million people. I'm guessing it's not, but it's a lot.
It's like 17 virgins who live in their mother's garage listening 24/7. No,
Right.
I'm kidding. He's great, and he teaches the truth. But, it's a lot easier. Well, I was going to say about clicking on something. There's a term now I really like. It's called slacktivism. It's slacker activism. Like basically clicking like and clicking share on something is activism now. It's slacktivism. And, you should
Or
continue
clicking the link and signing the petitions that moveon.org.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. The state is
slacktivism. Yeah. But, and we encourage people to share the Fiends and to go on iTunes and rate and review us. That really helps. Same with the Anarchy Gumbo podcast. And Neema, I want to get you to start interviewing people for the Anarchy Gumbo podcast. I think you interview people well, and I don't want to put interviews on the Freedom Fiends anymore.
Why
I think
don't
you should.
I want to do that too, and I was going to bring that up to you off the air. But why not do it on the Freedom Fiends? Why do it on Anarchy Gumbo?
Because I really like the Freedom Fiends being the us talking and taking phone calls and talking, and I like the Anarchy Gumbo being the interviews.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And and it's kind of like I want to bring you into my world, brother. I don't want to. I kind of feel bad having a side project that you're not in. It's kind of what it is.
Well, I'm definitely down to start interviewing people. I've been wanting to do it a lot lately.
And
I've been too busy having vacations.
After your 17th vacation this month, maybe you'll have time.
Yes. I will. Okay. I'll hit it hard and pick myself up by the bootstraps and interview some awesome people. Definitely.
Cool. So I guess what I was saying was, I kind of feel like it's a losing battle. You don't feel like it is because you're young and haven't been beaten down by life as long as I have. But I feel like I have to do it anyway.
Yeah, I would do it either way too. Even if I thought we were going to lose, I would still do it. Just like if I was in the cattle car in Nazi Germany,
you try to break the door.
I would try to break the door, and it might mean I get shot, but I'd rather die standing up on my feet than on my knees begging to not be shot.
Blowing a Nazi.
Yeah.
Blowing an Obama youth.
I mean, theoretically, obviously, my testicular fortitude has never been tested to that level, but that's how I sort of fantasize about it. I don't want to go into the night laying down. I don't want to be evaporated by the microwave like in Moon. I want to be fully aware of the truth. And if I die, I want to die fighting for the truth.
Yeah.
So,
Worms.
and the reason I don't think it's such a losing battle, and it's not even necessarily because of all the libertarians and anarchists out there preaching the good word, but I think a lot of it goes back to what Ben says. A lot of it is the fact the state is so obviously and transparently corrupt and wrong and immoral, and because it's not even trying hard anymore to hide that fact. I think more and more people are starting to realize that. I mean, Look at the Republicans' campaign now against Obama. They don't even show Mitt Romney in the commercials I've been seeing. It's not vote for us because we're great. It's doesn't Obama suck? and he does. And I think so
does Romney.
some old ladies might be fooled by that, but I think people of a certain age, maybe younger people or smarter people of a certain intellect as well.
People that can read.
Yeah. Are seeing through the BS because there's no other way to read it. There's really no other way to look at the modern state and think of it as something that is legitimate. And people will go through various ways of trying to change it, yeah. But I think in the end, because it's the truth and because mankind generally moves toward truth, and they do fall off the boat every now and then or fall off the wagon, but I think on a long enough timeline we sort of see the way things should work and implement them.
Yeah. And I want to clarify, I said, I feel like it's a losing battle. I usually don't feel like it's a losing battle, but I have my moments of doubt, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I do too. We all do.
So speaking of people who fight the good fight, I want to talk a little bit about Ademo. Do you know what's going on with him?
Yeah, he's up for like 20-something years on his charges. Just completely ridiculous. I think he was covering some kind of abuse at a school in New Hampshire. Is that correct? And in his travails, the government ended up charging him with wiretapping or something like that, when in reality he's just trying to get a story. You know?
Basically, there's this 17-year-old kid at the local high school there in New Hampshire, got beat up by another kid and, fought back. And it was one of those things of like, both kids got in trouble for it, even though one kid was defending himself. There was cell phone video of it, and the kid's friend was friends with Ademo and brought it to him. And Ademo, which is great. It's like, I like that Ademo is being like big brother to these picked on kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wish I'd had something like that when I was a kid. Not just picked on kids, but like, being a resource for the local young adults.
Oh yeah.
And Ademo, the kid got in trouble with the school, with the principal, for defending himself. And Ademo took the video the kid brought him and then called the school and interviewed the principal and like the school security officer or something on the phone and said, "I'm calling from Cop Block and I want to get a statement from you." He didn't say I'm recording, but it's like, if you called and said, "I'm from the New York Times and I want to get a statement from you," you'd assume you're being recorded.
Or at the very least, it's on record.
Yeah. And he used the conversation in his reply video on YouTube.
Yeah.
The school got him arrested, charged with wiretapping, and he's facing 27 years in prison, man, for this.
Wow.
Really, the basic thing is any public person, anybody working for the government should be able to be recorded all the time. I believe it truly. I mean, they're supposed to be working for you. It should be accountable. And it's a slippery slope of like, if this is illegal, if it's deemed legal that, or deemed that he was, if he goes to jail and he loses this, first of all, I think it could go to the Supreme Court. Second of all, it basically says that the government can operate in secret. It's not far from you can't record a phone call to you can't film the police on the street to, trials are held in private.
Oh, completely. Yeah. And if it does go to the Supreme Court, it's not like the Supreme Court is a fair arbiter. I mean, they're on the side of the state, right?
Although this is a thing where there might be a chance where the liberals of the Supreme Court would rule in Ademo's favor, I think. Well, I don't know.
It's
liberals used to be
so
like
hard
that.
to tell, man. I
Yeah.
mean, who knows what the hell they're going to do? And who really cares? Because they're
They're
not
the
really...
puppets. I take it back. They're the puppets. They're the
They
state,
are.
man. What was I thinking? I was like,
That's why they
believing in
wear the big
process.
robes, because...
I was believing in the process for a minute, so they can hide their vibrators underneath them. But
Right. I don't know. What do you think Ademo should do? Because...
well,
I'm not giving Ademo any advice at all, but because
he's fighting it. It doesn't matter what we think what he should do.
Yeah.
He's fighting it, and his trial starts a week from yesterday. And it's interesting because they say the trial is expected to last 1 to 2 days, and I'm like, that kind of reminds me of when I interviewed Hubert Selby for the movie I ended up making. It was originally going to be an interview to go on the DVD of my second edition of the book $30 Writing School.
Uh-huh.
I was interviewing writers, and I called him up and I told him about it, and I was like, yeah, it's this book and it comes out in 4 months, and I've written it, or I'm still writing it, but it's going to be a pretty long book. It's going to be 520 pages. And he was, he's a novelist. And he's like, how do you know how long it's going to be if it's not done? And I'm like, well, that's what my editor told me. And, I'm kind of like, how do you know how long a trial is going to be until you have it? It almost sounds predetermined to me, but,
well,
that's what they said.
Then again, who said this? This was in a local news report.
Yeah, but an interesting thing is, Ian and a few other people have been doing FIJA, Fully Informed Jury Association activism in front of the courthouse, which is now legal in New Hampshire.
Yes.
It's illegal in a lot of states, and there's people who've had to leave the country from doing it to avoid prison. But New Hampshire actually passed a law that it is legal, and it's also legal for an attorney to inform,
in court, right? Which is more helpful than handing out leaflets. It's telling the jury, because you'll notice if you ever go to court, the judge will instruct the jury. He'll say, like, you are to notice the facts of this and only render a verdict based on if this person broke the law or not. Judges will usually say something to that effect of, it's your job not to interpret the law, but to interpret whether or not this person broke said law.
Yeah. I guess if I have any advice for Ademo, and I'm sure he wouldn't take it either way, would be, I hope he has an attorney. I don't know if he does either way. And I know he was actually defending Mark Stevens in my beefing against him and saying, hey, Mark does great work. So I'm assuming maybe Ademo is representing himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to beef with the demo. I love the guy.
He's currently in jail, right? Like, he's wearing handcuffs. They have to bring him in through the back door and all that kind of stuff, right?
Ian and Mark were reading yesterday on Free Talk Live. It wasn't Police One. It was some other cop site where they blogged about this. And, man, the comments from the cops were just scary. I mean, they were like, I hope he gets raped in prison. I hope his blog gets shut down, blah, blah, which, first of all, and Ian pointed this out, Cop Block is not just a demo. If a demo goes to prison, Cop Block will not stop. It'll probably get more attention and get ramped
completely.
up.
Yeah, completely.
But, these are the people that are supposed to be defending you, these cops, and they're like advocating violence on someone for free speech. Yeah. Over and over and over. And I hope he gets raped in prison. I hope they throw away the key. This kid got what he deserved. He shouldn't be meddling with the public schools.
Well, it's completely disgusting, but it doesn't surprise me in the least, right? They're protecting their gravy train. In their heads, they're just looking out for each other. I mean, they're part of the protected class, just like the school teachers and the principals and the city councilmen are. So they go into protection mode, not into theology mode or philosophy mode. They don't give a crap about what's right. They just give a crap about if they keep getting their paycheck, and if their friends keep getting their paycheck, and if they're not harassed for getting the paycheck made out of stolen money.
Worms. Well, anyway, we wish Ademo the best, and I really hope that he does not go to prison.
I really hope so, too. Although, you are definitely right to point out that Cop Block's not going away no matter what happens to Ademo.
And this actually made the front page of the Huffington Post. I
saw that.
And it was like somebody put up a CNN report, which is, you write the story. Basically, you do their work for free.
Yeah. And they get paid for it.
It actually was the second most popular CNN report ever.
Excellent.
Yep.
Freedom Fiends got your blood boiling? Tell them what's on your mind. Contact them at talkback@freedomfiends.com. You're listening to the Freedom Fiends podcast. Freedom Fiends is now available for 24/7 streaming to your iPhone, Android phone, or other chromed robot turd. Click on the streaming audio link on freedomfiends.com. That's FREEDOMFEENS.com.
We are rolling.
What's up, Michael?
Did you see this thing called copping a feel? Former police sergeant accused of masturbating in squad car while on duty.
I sure did. And in the comments, somebody said, more like feeling a cop.
Yeah, Chris Flash said that, and Charlock said, or Otto Yamioto said, all coppers are wankers, some more than others. And Charlock and Paul Bonneau basically said the world would be a better place if they all spent their days doing this.
Yeah, that's true. I'd much rather you be spanking it in your squad car than trying to give me a ticket.
They're trying to spank me, yeah. Speaking of cops...
What? I guess the bad thing is he's using stolen money to masturbate. But
even so,
I've masturbated at work before.
I have too. When I was a bike messenger, I used to riding a bike turned me on because my balls are vibrating all day. Riding a bike 8 hours a day and going into all these offices with all these hot secretaries.
Yeah,
I used to at least once or twice, probably 4 times a week, I would just slip into like a bathroom of an office building or like, the stairwell between floors and just, face the wall and pull one off real
Rub
quick.
one out. Yeah. I always felt like that was fine if you spend 5 minutes in the bathroom, right? It's a normal bathroom break. I always called it going number 3.
Come on the wall of the corporation.
Nice.
That's my comment on the 1%. Ooh, baby.
I jizz on you.
I jizz on your walls.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the story didn't make me feel too upset at the state per se, because dude is just trying to get off. But it goes to show you that cops aren't special, right? They're not some kind of class that should be anointed because they're so moral and right. It's like, they're going to rub one off in the squad car too. They're just like you and me.
I saw a guy masturbating in a car one time. It was really creepy. It was broad daylight. It was Charlottesville, Virginia. And he was parked down on what's called the Commons, which is like where all the college students go hang out at lunch. He's watching girls.
Have you ever masturbated in a car?
Not where people could plainly see me like that. I mean, I used to live in my van for a while.
Okay.
I did all sorts of
I've
things
done
in
it
there.
while driving. I've done pretty much every... Or had
masturbated while driving?
Yeah. A stick shift, no less. That's why
literally.
when people are like, "Don't text and drive; it's too distracting." It's like, I'm pretty skilled at multitasking when it comes to driving. It'd be dark and on the freeway, so I didn't really have to change gears. And it's like the middle of the night in between LaGrange, Texas, and Smithville or something. Where there's literally nothing.
I've shot heroin while driving my van.
Have you?
Yeah.
I've never done that, so you beat me there.
That's kind of way beyond drinking and driving.
I think so. Yeah.
Shooting heroin while driving. Yeah.
While driving and getting a naughty nursey and and rubbing crocodile on your gums. That's a good old time. That's a fiend time.
You really like the naughty nursey and the crocodile imagery.
I do.
I like that.
I do. My father-in-law has been in the hospital lately, and I think I made a naughty nursey joke while we were visiting with the other family.
Did he get it?
No, nobody knew what it was, and I didn't explain it. Thank God.
So the U.S. has come up with malware which infects Iranian nuclear energy facilities and plays AC/DC at full volume. And I'm thinking, like, do you think they're paying royalties to AC/DC for that? They should.
Yeah, seriously. Let's call the RIAA and tell them that the government is stealing MP3s.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, okay. So that does suck, because AC/DC sucks. So
I love AC/DC. You're insane.
How can you love AC/DC, man?
You're insane.
I guess. I don't know. I guess they're simple, and simple is good, but I just can't get into it, man. It's just he's too whiny for me. I feel like...
Well, there were 2 different singers. You probably don't know them well enough to know that.
No.
There was one who...
They all sound the same to me.
One of them choked on his own vomit or something. And the guy who replaced him sounds exactly like him, but more whiny.
Okay.
I mean, they haven't done anything good since, like, their second record, since, like, 1981 or something, but they're still together.
I guess I kind of like Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, because it's kind of catchy, but that's about it.
Yeah, although it's about murdering people.
It is, yeah. I'm not co-signing the content, but it is a catchy song as far as songs go.
So one thing I wanted to point out about the shooter in Denver is that the place that he got his $26,000 from, his gift from the government to go to school, was from part of the National Institute of Health, which is not only where I was given anti-steroids, and where the part of the naval complex where the protagonist, Michael Valentine Smith, in Stranger in a Strange Land is secreted away. But that's also where the CIA began its mind control experimentation in the 1940s.
So another link to the CIA mind control. Or I guess not another one, but a link to the CIA mind control.
Yep.
Huh. Although the NIH is a giant bureaucracy, right? So that's kind of like another dinosaur and tail kind of thing. I mean, I think they also do like I don't know if they are the ones who actually do it, but I think in some way they're responsible for those drug surveys, which I actually did one in Wyoming where, they send you a questionnaire and somebody will even come and ask you questions about your past and current drug use.
Really?
And then they compile stats about it. Yeah.
And
they pay you like $50 or something.
Yeah, and then give your name to the local police, probably, or the DEA.
Maybe. Although I was pretty. I don't want to say close with the local police, but I did have a relation. It was when I was in Riverton, and I knew the police chief and their PIO guy, and they were all pretty buddy with me at the time. So,
my drug history is ancient history, and I say it on here all the time, and I'll talk about shooting crocodile with a tranny hooker. But if someone came to my house and wanted to ask me questions about that, I'd be like, dude, get off my property. Come back with a warrant. You know?
Yeah. When it's your first reporting job and you're making that horrible salary, extra $50 sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So you were supplementing your income by doing that, selling blood and selling semen, probably.
I would never do the blood or the semen. Well, I would do the semen. I wouldn't do the blood. I have this thing with needles, which is probably why I could never be a heroin
I would not do
addict.
the semen because I really think that when you become a parent or a sperm donor, whatever, I think that you are somehow like connecting yourself to that person and being responsible for them in some way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I donated semen and then 20 years later somebody comes up and says, hey, check out this paternity test, I'm your son, I would be like, okay, cool, let's go have a beer or something.
Yeah. What if the laws change and they can come back and make you support them?
Ugh. Well,
that's possible.
You think that's possible?
Yep.
I mean, I guess anything's possible when it comes to the state. Yeah, that would be horrible. I don't know, man. I guess if that happened, yeah, that would be a horrible thing, and that is something to consider. Because I didn't ever agree contractually to take care of my seed in that sense. I'm just sort of selling my genetic information to somebody so they can raise their own kid in the case that they can't find a mate or that they can't reproduce on their own, of their own accord.
Are you using a ribbon mic today?
I am.
You sound really sexy.
Yeah.
I am too.
Yeah, it sounds sexy when I talk about jacking off into a cup, doesn't it? Yeah.
For the state.
For the state. Well, I mean, donating semen, you don't donate it to the state. You donate it to a private sperm bank, right?
Yeah, but the state's all up in that now, too.
True.
Remember that story about a man that was doing it on his own to help,
and he got in trouble because he wasn't
whatever.
licensed?
Yeah. So, anytime there's licensing requirements, the state is part owner in your business without contributing anything.
That's true. Which is another reason why marriage as it is conceived today is kind of scary in a way, because basically when you get a marriage license, you're making the government party to your union.
You're inviting the government into your bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Ew.
Ugh.
I mean, I don't mind tranny hooker threesomes with crocodile. That's not disgusting, but the state being involved in your marriage is.
Well, it's like Doug Stanhope says, this shit we got together, baby, it's really good. You know what we should do? We should bring in some judges and some lawyers and some bureaucrats in on this. That's how good our love is.
I love Doug Stanhope. And, there's probably people who'd say, if we were really walking our talk with anarchy, we would divorce our wives and then marry them in civil ceremonies or something. But I don't know. I think that's kind of like trying to unregister to vote. It'd be more trouble than it's worth and probably put you on the DHS watch list, although we're probably on that already.
Yeah. It's kind of like driving in the dirt alongside of the road because you don't want to drive on the government roads.
Yeah.
I'll only drive on the shoulder because I'm a good anarchist.
You'd get arrested.
Yeah, you would.
That would be okay. Eddie Free. That would be a really good. I'm looking at you, Eddie Free. I think that'd be a really good activist video. I think you should drive. I think you should get your cameraman in your car and you should drive on the side of the road until you get arrested for it, and tell the cop, I'm an anarchist. I want to be true and not use the government roads.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. Eddie Free. Who else would do that? I got a long list of people in New Hampshire who might do that.
You're listening to the Freedom Feens podcast. Freedom Feens is now available for 24/7 streaming to your iPhone, Android phone, or other chromed robot turd. Click on the streaming audio link on freedomfeens.com. That's FREEDOMFEENS.com.
All right, so let's end up here with some frank talk, some frank discussion.
Yeah, we were talking about cop block earlier and the fact that, okay, so I mean, Adamo's already in jail. Cop Block's still going strong. It's one of those great things that the idea is self-sufficient, right? It's not dependent on a great man to lead it.
What do they say? It's independent cells capable of operating without central leadership.
There you go. Yeah, it's a sleeper cell for freedom.
A non-violent sleeper cell fighting the state violence.
And there's similar things already out there. I just moved to Austin, and somebody, I don't know if he's from Austin or from near here, was contacting me on Facebook for this thing called I think it's the Peaceful Streets Project, which is very similar to Cop Block in a lot of ways. And it all started with this guy, I think Will Grigg wrote about him, where he was driving down 6th Street or somewhere in the bar district at night, and he saw cops basically beating this woman up, like throwing her on the ground, being very violent with her. And so this guy got out with his friend and started taking pictures and documenting it. And then the cops came up to him and started harassing him. They put him in handcuffs, like threw him in the drunk tank, arrested him, told him not to F with cops, and we're going to teach you a lesson. And then
Don't F with Texas.
And then they drummed up some charges. I forget what they were, but they were BS charges. And the guy's sort of going through all this legal trouble, and so he started this project where, they gave out like 100 camcorders or cameras to people, and they just walked down. They had an event where they just walked down 6th Street in downtown Austin with cameras, basically just pointing them at cops the whole time.
100
like the whole
camera
night.
march.
Yeah, and so things like that are really great, and the idea of holding police accountable and letting them know that we're watching you. You can't get away with murder, basically. Or any kind of aggression without us watching you. That idea is strong, and it's going to live on forever, no matter what happens to Adamo.
If Adamo had murdered 2 people, he'd probably be facing less time in prison.
Yeah,
or if he'd murdered one person.
The thing is, that doesn't surprise me at all, because this is the state feeling like it's attacked. So they want to make sure that they set an example, just kind of like how they did with Derek J. I feel like with Derek J. and with Ian, when Ian Freeman was in trouble, I feel like the judge and the local government there is trying to set an example that, hey, no matter what you do, we're either gonna give you more time than you should give, and we're gonna add on all these different charges to where they add up to some long amount of time. So it doesn't surprise me at all that Adamo is facing such insane punishment, some cruel and unusual punishment.
And I want to say that when I suggested that Eddie Free get arrested for driving on the side of the road, I'm not recommending anyone do anything
You're just saying it would be
illegal.
really funny to watch a video like that.
It'd be funny if someone did that, yeah. I don't want to get a conspiracy
My
charge
brother,
here.
Frank, who's actually, he's been on the show before. He's in our movie, Guns and Weed. Great little anarchist, and I'm so glad that he is.
Aw, great little anarchist.
And
he was a minarchist until how long ago? When did he make the final leap to the dark side? After he got arrested again?
I don't know. Did he talk?
That's a thing. I really think that. I mean, a lot of people are going to suffer for this to happen, but I really think that the state just ramping up its beating people up and throwing them in prison. I said before that the longer pot's illegal, the more anarchists there will be. The longer cops just act like assholes more than they are in their job description in general, the more anarchists there will be. Because you get people who are like, have never considered politics, and then they get arrested or someone near them gets arrested, and all of a sudden they're like, F the state, man. And when they're doing things like arresting mothers for letting their 5-year-old daughter, draw on with chalk on some sidewalk, which is something that like kids used to do. They used to give you chalk in school to like draw on the, you'd be playing hopscotch and keeping track on the ground. Like there was this one recently, this girl, 5-year-old girl was drawing a door to the magical kingdom on some public park, and the cops arrested the mother and made her do community service. And now the daughter is like fearful of cops and chalk.
Yeah, completely ridiculous. Yeah, when they're doing things like that,
that little girl is never going to trust the state. They've made an anarchist
exactly.
there.
Just like when they try to fight terrorists, they just create more terrorists. The state reacting this way is going to be its own downfall. They're going to end their own career for us. Now, and speaking of the Magic Kingdom, I mean, also things like what they did in Anaheim, where they've shot like 6 or 7 people in this one neighborhood, and then most recently they shot a guy in the back of the head. I didn't realize that until recently with this most recent thing, this flare-up in Anaheim, but they shot the guy in the back of the head. Unarmed guy.
I saw some great activism with that. A guy made a sign that said something like, it had a picture of Mickey Mouse, and it said like, "Hey kids, here's your federal stormtroopers," and he held up the sign, where the cops were guarding the entrance to Disneyland, and like he was filmed, like he held the sign up, and like 10 seconds later, these like gooned out SWAT team looking cops just like threw him to the ground and arrested him.
And that kind of stuff, while it's horrible, that's the kind of stuff that does make people realize how horrible the state is. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's great that this kind of stuff happens, but, these are the kinds of things that will make new anarchists and will make people realize what the state really is. The state is showing its hand, I think, more than ever before, at least in recent memory. Although, I mean, I guess has always kind of done this stuff, like in the Kent State shootings and things back in the 60s.
There was a kid recently that was arrested. He was a student at Kent State who posted online about like, I just want to shoot a bunch of cops at school or something like that. And they arrested him, took away all his guns, and gave him an ankle bracelet and a restraining order, and he can't go to Kent State. I guess that's the government protecting their market share to be able to murder at Kent State.
Yeah, I suppose so. Only we can kill people on Kent State. Ugh.
So,
Frank. Yeah, we got
Frank,
off.
Yeah, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. This is going to be the longest Fiends ever, but it is our 100th episode.
Things like Cop Block are so great because you can just wear the shirt, which is a great shirt. And Frank was down on 6th Street with me the other day. Slacktivism, right?
Slacktivism.
Well, he was putting work into it, though. He's wearing the Cop Block shirt. Once he got a few drinks in him, every person he'd walk up to on the street, he'd show the shirt and be like, "Cop Block, check it out, man. Cops fucking suck." And the cops would be like right there, because on 6th Street now, the cops are on literally every corner, like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them on their little gay ass bicycles with their faggy bicycle shorts. And he was even showing it to the cops. He was like, "Hey, y'all need to check this out and think about what you're doing."
You're kind of I think that's not fair to gays.
Okay.
I'm not PC,
okay,
but it's like, I know some gays that hate cops too.
Well,
I have an interview
it's like the
with
Louis
one coming
C.K.
out
thing.
this
When I say
Saturday
faggot, I'm not
Gumbo.
trying to hate on gays. It's a different thing.
I know. Louis C.K. is like hilariously unpolitically correct these days.
Fine. They're unflattering bicycle shorts. We'll put it that way. And it was great, and he was when you're drunk on 6th Street, you get into some interesting conversations, and he was trying to convert people, and I think that kind of grassroots, just talking to people that you're drunk with on 6th Street or wherever you get drunktivism,
drunktivism,
do that kind of thing. And he was talking to this one girl, and he was like, "Don't you hate cops?" And she was like, "Yeah, I hate them cops, but, sometimes they be helping me out, too, because I got an uncle who's a cop, and sometimes people I know be getting in trouble, and I just call him up, and it's okay." So I guess it's a triage thing. There are some people that just don't get it, but that shouldn't stop you from telling people about this, from crying out to the world and tailoring it to, if you realize somebody's not going to get it, or somebody's anti it, or you're not going to be able to be successful. You don't have to be a dick about it. Don't push it. Just move on to the next person.
Cool.
That's all I had to say about Frank. Also, I love you, Frank. You're my bro.
Yeah, Frank's my bro too.
No homo.
I love you, no homo, Frank. So I'm going to close with some news you can use. I'm not going to say that this happened to my cat, because I don't want to sound like I'm not a good cat dad, because I really am. But I have this friend who his cat recently just started acting rabid for like a day, and then it went away, and he looked like he was dying or something. It turned out that friend said that he found he'd spilled some ibuprofen in the basement, and the cat had eaten or licked one of them. And ibuprofen is really, really bad for cats, and you should never let cats or dogs get a hold of it. So,
good.
Yeah,
good.
I'll just say that.
That is news you can use, because ibuprofen is really probably my most ingested drug at home, just because it. Okay.
Yeah, don't spill any on
That's
the floor.
Good to know,
where the
sometimes
puppies
you
or
are
cats
pouring it, in your hand, and maybe you drop a pill, and you're just like so sick, you're like, whatever, I'll get it later. But no, you should make sure to make it a priority to pick that up and dispose of it properly. Yeah. See, anarchists care about safety. See?
Yeah.
We just don't want to point guns at people and tell them to be safe. If you drop some ibuprofen, we're not going to raid your house with a SWAT team. That's the difference. Isn't that nice? That's nice.
Yeah. And and unlike the FDA, we won't approve drugs that'll kill you and then later unapprove them.
Like
while
pot.
banning drugs that help you. Weed. All right, man. It was a good 100th episode. And
all right, man. I will.
Have a good time in Hawaii. And then come back and have your 5th vacation this summer. And then we'll get to work.
Nice talking to you. Peace.
Worms.
Hello, Freedom Fiends. It's your boy Dean from the U.S. Get the U.S. out my bloodstream. I-O-me and that include endorphins. No one won't ask permission and I won't say please. Freedom fans, one fact that I gotta make clear is...
The Freedom Fiends podcast is covered by a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it and spread it around. Tell 2 friends. Make copies. Email it to everyone you know. Go on the site and comment. This is a conversation. Every week, we'll have an exciting new episode where Michael W. Dean and Neema Vedadi weave their own unique take on the way the world works and how to find your place in it. Available from FreedomFeens.com. That's FreedomFeens.com.
Freedom Fiends is proudly syndicated by Alterati.com and the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Subscribe and tell 2 friends.
And remember, the only power they have is the power you allow them. We're not saying the Freedom Fiends are the one true path to anarchist liberation, but it's a good one. If you want to put your voluntarist money where your mouth is, consider making a donation to the Freedom Fiends. Go to freedomfiends.com and click on the spinning coin on any post. Then make a one-time gift via PayPal or set up a monthly contribution of as little as $3. Giving to the Freedom Fiends helps advance education of horizontal liberation throughout the world. The Freedom Fiends. We work hard, so send us some money.